Okay, we're gonna start right now. It's the first Python class. We're first gonna do a little intro, just introductions, expectations, and getting you all signed into Replit, which is just a thing I use to code, and the other co-host, Kate, uses to code and show examples. Then we're gonna do a recap from the last session with Aranka Ni, and then a review. We're gonna learn about loops and while loops, and then another review with a project. So first, expectations, there are no grades, there are no homework, but we do have in-class projects, and we're gonna try to all finish it all together so we know that you guys know how to do the concept we just taught. Videos can be off and you can use the microphone or chat to ask questions, and I'm pretty sure private messages are on, so you can message each other and the tutors questions. You should ask questions in the public chat so both me and Kate could see it, but using private chat is also fine. Attendance is not mandatory. We'll try to give a recap at the beginning of the next class for the info we taught in the previous one. So if you miss it by accident, it's okay. So first, Replit. So we're just gonna wait a couple of minutes for everyone to try to join on Replit. If you already have, then you can just sit tight for a minute. So Replit is just the website we use to code on. You can use many languages, and it has Python because this is a Python class, of course. So if you have any trouble with it, just unmute and talk or type in the chat. So first off, the recap, we're just going to go over the basics of what Aranka Ni went over in the first session. If you didn't attend, it's okay. These are pretty easy concepts, and I'm pretty sure you guys can all learn it.
Wait, maybe we should do introductions first?
Yeah. Oh wait, I deleted that slide. My bad. Sorry, guys. So we're gonna go back.
You just go back to the first.
Yay. I'm Liana Zhu. I am a freshman at Cal State University. I got into this program thing called Early Entrance Program, which let me skip high school. I am majoring in pre-computer science, and I know basics of C++ and Java and Python and R, so I know most of the concepts.
Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm a freshman at Miracosta High School, which is not Cal State University, but I have taken Python courses and I've been coding for a lot in my life, so I know the basics down pretty well.
Now we're gonna start on the recap. First, variables. Variables are pretty basic things. You use them a lot in math. So in coding, it's basically the same thing. It's used to store things like text, numbers. So for text, they're called strings. Numbers, you use integers or floats. And there are also empty variables, which you just use it where it's just none. Variables can keep your code more organized because they're for labeling values. And to convert a variable, you just put the name of the variable you want it to be converted to, the variable type like string or int, and the variable you want converted. So in operations, the basic operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, used with the signs below, the plus sign, minus sign, multiplication sign, and division sign. However, they are represented a little differently in Python. So the plus and minus sign are the same, but to signify multiplication, use the asterisk, and to use division, use the /. Comparing operators are equal, which represents equal to, exclamation point equal to, which represents not equal to, less than, which represents less than, greater than, which is greater than, less than equal to, which is less than equal to, and greater than equal to, which is greater than equal to. So these are just things that don't really fit into a category. So white spaces are just indented code that indicates blocks of code, and you're going to use this more in loops and in if statements. And comments are text that doesn't affect the code, and use the hashtag symbol, and usually they're signified by a different color in the code. User input is where you let the user input stuff from the output. And so when the code runs to the input with parentheses, it allows the user to put in text. And to embed values in strings, you can use the percentage sign and an S in the string where you want it to be embedded. And then after the string, you put percentage and the value you want embedded in place of percentage S. So there's list, maps, or dictionary, and dict for short, and tuples. So lists are basically a list of values. They can be any values, integers, or strings. To create a list, use the list name and set that equal to the brackets with the values in the list separated by commas. And then to get a specific value of the list, you put the list name and then index in brackets next to it. The index are basically the position of the values in the list. So it starts at 0 and then goes to 1. So value 1 has an index of 0 and value 2 has the index of 2, has the index of 1, sorry, and value 3 has the index of 2, and etc. To get a specific subset or part of the list, you put the list name and then the first index of the first value of the subset, and then the index of the last value of this subset. And to add a value to the end of the list, you just put the list name, period, append, and the value you want added to the end. And to delete a value from the list, you put the list name, the index of the value you wanted deleted in brackets. And then to insert it into a specific position, not like append where you add it to the end, for the list name, period, insert, and then the index where you wanted it inserted, and then the value you wanted inserted. And you can also add lists together and multiply lists by an integer. So for maps, they're pretty similar to lists, but there is a key and a corresponding value. To create a map, you put the map name, the value of the key, the value and the key corresponding to the value, separated with colons, and then these values are separated by commas. Then to get a specific value from a map, you put the name of the map and then the key corresponding to the value. And to delete a value and the key, you put the key in brackets and put the map name next to it, sort of like that. And to switch out the value, you put the key of the value, then you put the new value you wanted it switched with. And you can't operate on maps, so you can't add it to each other multiplied by anything else. And tuples are really similar to lists, but you can't change it. So you make one by using the name of the tuple and put the value separated by commas in parentheses. So next are if, else, and elif statements. So ifs are, if conditions have an if keyword and then the condition and then the block of code, which is shown with an indent here. The condition is going to be used, are going to use the comparing operators like the equal sign, the greater than equal to sign, all of that. And if the condition is true, it's going to run the block of code under. If it's not, it's going to skip the block of code. If else is just in addition to the if statement. So if the condition is false, it's going to run the block of code under the else keyword. Elif is else if. So it has the if statement, then the else statement, but in between is going to be elif. So if the first condition is false, it's going to check if the second condition is true. If it's true, it's going to run the block of code underneath. If it's false, it's going to skip it. And there can be multiple elif statements. So if all of them are false, then it's going to run the block of code under else. So that is all for the recap. It was really a lot, but there's an example. So here, comments are going to be in a different color. So here's a variable, it's string. You can put spaces in it, but to make a string, it has to have quotations around it. Then it can be basically any name. The variables have a lot of flexibility, and it can be really long. Then to put an integer, you just don't have quotations around it. And here is an empty variable with it equal to none. And this is just a long number with decimals. So that's a float. Then to print out something, you put print and then the variable inside. So that would print out that over here. And then it prints out long numbers, so it would print out that. Then to print out the key span part, it would print out that. Then to embed a value in the code, you put the sentence and then the %s and then the value. So this would embed string 3321, which is that, into the place of the percentage s. So then it would be over here. Then if you print out a value with nothing in it, it would print out none because it's an empty variable. Then to print out an empty line, you can just do print with nothing inside the parentheses. For lists, here's a list called 1, 2, text value number 4, index number 3. And if you print out the index 1, which is be over here, it would print out the second value, which has the index of 1. And to add the value hello to the end, you just do this, and then when you print it out, it will have the value hello at the end. Then to remove it, the index 3, so it corresponds to this value, and when you print it out, it will show the list without that value. Then here's another list called number with 1, 2, 3, 4 in it. And when you add it together, it will add the list number behind the list of the key spam list. And then to multiply lists together, you just put 4, a random integer, times the list, and that will show repeated 4 times. So here's that 4 times. Then tuples. Here is just the random tuple I made, and that's how it looks inputted. You can't really do much with tuples since you can't add any values or delete any values. And for maps, here's a map with 1 plus 1 as the key to 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 for drink, hotel, Trivago for the second indexed third value input. And so when you want to print out 2, you put the corresponding key, which is 1 plus 1. So that would print out 2. And to delete a value and the key, you would just put the key and then it would delete the whole thing. So then it just shows these 4 values. To change a value, since 1 plus 1 used to correspond to 2, and if you change it to 568034492, it would then change the corresponding value from 1 plus 1 to 568034492. If statements. So now we're going to go over if statements. So integer variable here was equal to 1. So here, if 1 is greater than 0.234, which it is, it's going to run this code. So then, since it is, it will run the code and subtract 1 from 1. So now if you print out integer variable, it should be 0. Next is an example of an if-else statement. So now long number is equal. So if long number is equal to 2, then long number is now equal to 3. If it's not, then long number should equal to 1, 1, 1, etc. 0.2. Since long number is not equal to 2, it won't run this, but it will run this. So when you print out long number, it should print out 1.1111, etc. So now is an example of an if statement. So since your age, so it's asking how old you are. So what's inside the input will show here, and then once it runs, it will allow the user to type in stuff. So I'm just going to put like 88. And since 88 would not make any of these 3 conditions true, it will run the else statement and print, wow, you're a slightly older adult. So that's just a basic rundown of what we went through last session. It's a lot. So if you have any questions, just speak out or type in the chat.
So loops, which is basically recycling your code. So for like the purpose of loops, I don't know. So one problem like Liana taught was the print statement. So try and print the name of your favorite animal for example, 10 times using Python. So like here, I used capybaras, there's a picture of them, and just print it 10 times. So for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically, and then animal. Then if you want to set it as a variable, you could do save animal. Okay, so once everybody's printed the name of their favorite animal like 10 times, you could either like raise your hand or like just show some sort of signal that to tell me that you're done or that you've done it. Does anybody want me to just go through the process of printing out the animal 10 times? I think, okay, I think I'll go back to the presentation. So I'm assuming people have done it. So the answer, like you could type it out, print the animal name 10 times, which is extremely, extremely time consuming and not worth it in many situations. But there's a quicker way to do this that reduces the amount of typing that we have to do. So introducing for loops. They are used to recycle code that you would normally type over and over again. So basically the print statement, and they have much cleaner formatting. So for making a for loop, see, this might be a little complicated. So here is the finished product. So it should look like for this X here, as I said, can be replaced by anything. So it could be for A in range, for B in range, for list, no, not for list, that's for cat in range, but generally you want it to be X because it's like easy to remember. For X in range 0 to 5, the numbers here after the range, they are basically how many times you want the loop to run. So it's basically the loop starts, it starts at 0, it runs 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it stops right before the 5. So it runs the equivalent of 5 times, but the number 5 isn't like displayed. Okay, that's a little confusing, but just to know that if you want it to run 5 times, you have to do 0 to 5, not 1 to 5, because that would not work. That would only run 4 times. And then after the colon here, you would put the code that you would like to repeat. So in this case, it's printing hi. As you can see, hi is printed 5 times after I ran the code. Then the range function. So as I explained here, the range function is basically use it in a for loop, and it's for X in range A to B. It's telling Python to start counting at the number A and to stop counting before it reaches B. In loops, this information is used to know how many times the loop should run. The variable X is used to store the value and gives you ability to know what the value is while the loop is running still. So for a quick check, try the first assignment again, but this time using loops. So in your Replit account, you can create a new REPL or anything to code like how I have this one over here. You basically like delete this and code whatever assignments I'm asking you to. And this time use a for loop to print the name of your favorite animal 10 times instead of just typing the print statement out 10 times. So if anybody needs help with this, you can always ask too. Like in private chat, if you don't want to chat in front of everybody, you can ask how to do this if you didn't quite catch what I said before, or if you have any questions about making a for loop in general. If you're done, you can just like put a thumbs up or raise your hand or something. Here. So I think I might just move on. The answer would be, let me see. No, okay, that's not the right. So the answer would be basically for X in range 0 to 10, and if I run it, it would be, you see, it prints it 10 times. So if you haven't gotten your code down, this is what you should have, or like around what you should have. Okay, moving on now, using for loops with lists. So the format for this is for I in list, print I. So this would basically use your list in place of the range function. For each item in the list, the value is stored in the variable I. Here we are printing each item of the list. So what this does is it goes through a list and it looks at all the items. And here, the code, it prints out all the items. So it prints out each item one by one. It doesn't print them all like at the same time. And then here, I have a replit for this. Okay, so here the replit is, if I run this, you can see I have a list over here, which is cake, eggs, milk, and oranges. They're all strings, which makes them easy to print. And then the loop is for I in list, and it prints I. And here you can see the cake is printed, the eggs are printed, the milk is printed, and the oranges are printed. So that's basically how you print out each item of a list in an easier way with loops. And then also going back, I don't think I mentioned this, but for the range function here, now you can also use it to print out numbers. So you can see this program, basically it prints hello, and then it prints the number of the time that the loop is on. Because the loop runs 5 times. So here it prints, this is the first time the loop is running. This is the second time the loop is running. This is the third time the loop is running. This is the fourth time the loop is running. And this is the 5th time that the loop is running. So it would be easy. This could be useful for things if you're trying to make a list of like item number 1 is this, item number 2 is this, item number 3 is this, item number 4 is this, item number 5 is this, and item number 6 is this. So this could be used for that. Here's just like the substitute sign, which substitutes X into this string. So you can print it each time really easily. Okay, going back to the lists. Does anybody have questions about using loops and lists? If not, here we have a project that's make a list and use a loop to print out each item in the list as be as creative as you want. For example, if you have a list defined as wizard list and your code prints out spider legs, toe of frog, snail tongue, bat wing, slug butter, and bear burp. So like those are fun items for wizard's list. If you could create your own list, and maybe you could like share what was in your list in the chat if you make one, or private message it or anything, or you could talk, you can unmute yourself. So the next thing is blocks of loops, and you can also have loops within loops, which are called blocks. They can be used when you want to run code within loops, which is like something a little more advanced. It might be more confusing for you. If I move on to a replit over here, let me see. So here, it has a list, which is huge, hairy pants, and it has the items, huge, hairy, and pants in it. If I run this, it shows this. So basically, after every item of the list, huge, hairy pants, it prints huge, hairy pants again. So you can see after huge, it prints huge, hairy pants. And then after hairy, it prints huge, hairy pants. And then after pants, it prints huge, hairy pants. So this is useful when you're trying to make like a giant list or array of things, such as like numbers, multiplication tables, addition tables. This is like a very fun example that you're probably not going to use in any case, but I just wanted to let you know that it's possible to put loops within loops. Like you can also do things like I already said, like multiplication tables. So okay, the last thing I have is the for loop project. I'm just going to leave this up here. So the coin duplicating machine, you put your coins into the machine and the machine multiplies the whole amount by 2, duplicating it. But 3 coins are stolen from the machine every time you use it. If the equation for the machine is coins 2 times the amount of coins minus a variable of stolen coins, what happens if you use the machine 50 times. So use a loop to determine this, and you can choose the amount of coins that you put in. So, oh, there's no way to put it like side by side, but I can show you really quickly. Here. So you would want one variable that says coins and one variable that says stolen coins. And the equation will basically look like this: coins times 2 minus stolen coins. And then the for loop that, okay, if you want to know how to do a for loop that saves a result, for example, sum, and then for x in range 0 to 10, sum equals sum plus 1. So in this case, oh, I didn't print anything. If I want to print what sum is after all of this code, it shows that it's 10 because it adds 1 every single time it runs, which adds up to 10, if that makes sense. So that's basically what you want to do for the Raven thing. I'll just go back to this. If anybody wants me to go back to the other screen, you can tell me. But like, if you want to work on this project by yourself, or you can always ask me for help for anything involving loops. I'll just leave this up here until class ends. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. Class has basically ended. Thank you screen. You're free to leave. You can leave if you want. Thank you for attending.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for attending. Bye.